G'day, Martin here. Just a short little video to tell you a little bit about these things. Tiny tags, what they do, how we're using them, and how they can really help you. So basically this little thing here is a data logger. It records the temperature and it records it every 15 minutes. And that is really handy to us because it lets us know how many frost hours we're having, how many frosts we're having, how long our frosts are lasting, and what our frost risk is. Really handy little device, and I'll show you how it works. So this little tiny tag reader has a little temperature sensor in it there, and as you can read from the sticker, records anywhere between -40 and +85, and hopefully we never get anywhere near either of those temperatures, but it's just a solid unit with a lot of range. Now it records that temperature every 15 minutes, and when you plug it into a computer you get a graph like that. Shows you all the highs and lows, which is cool to look at, but not particularly useful. However, you can pull it up on a spreadsheet. So when you whack it up on a spreadsheet, this is what you get. You get one column that gives you the date, the time, and the individual reading, and another column that'll give you the date and the min and the max for that particular day. Very handy data. You can use one to work out how many frosts you've had in the year and use the other to work out how long those frosts have lasted and what your total amount of frost hours are. Very useful if you're trying to work out when your sowing window should be. So you get inside and this is what you find. It's the sensor, the circuit breaker, a couple of little lights let you know it's all going. Got these little batteries here, they're called a half AA. Funnily enough, they're the size of half a AA. And they give it enough power for 2 years. Other than that, stores enough data for 11 months. So they're a pretty great little machine. They don't quite get a year out of them, but you can adjust the your data settings. At the moment, these are set for every 15 minutes and 11 months. You know, that covers our cropping season, obviously. But if you did want to adjust it for a full year, you could change it to half an hour or so, and it'll give you all the information you ever want. So these are what you set the data loggers in. Just nice shielded, ventilated space. Keeps them in the shade, keeps them cool. It gives you a more accurate temperature reading like you'd actually get from like the Bureau of Meteorology, instead of a reading that's, you know, from direct sunlight. And I've seen some of these fall over and the readers end up in sunlight, gets up to 50, 60 degrees, and obviously that's not what's going on in the paddock. Now the way I like to set these up around the place, if you can get a couple of them, I like to set up a few in the coldest spots you're going to find, your gullies, your low points, where all that cold air is going to drain, so you know what the absolute worst case scenario is. Then I like to take one and put it in the best spot, so I know what my best case scenario is. And if possible, I'll also stick one somewhere in the middle somewhere, so I get a bit of an average feeling as to what the rest of the farm's doing. Now obviously if you can only get one or only have one, then I'll just stick that in an average spot, somewhere that's going to represent what most of your cropping is. That's what I've done with this one here. I've set it up for a mate. I know there's a couple of colder spots further down. I also know there's some spots that'd be warmer elsewhere. This is a pretty well average elevation and reasonably flat level. It'll be fairly similar to what most of his farm's going to be like. So that's why this one's here. And I know what you're thinking. Around me it looks pretty flat. You're going, how much difference can there be? And out here on the flat, it is surprising how much difference there is. Cold air drainage still finds low spots where the water runs, and you'll have much worse frost in there than you will over the rest of the place. Really interesting to see the data, even across one paddock that looks relatively flat. If you know where the highs and the lows are, you can have a massive difference in the amount of frosts. So it's a couple of days later and I'm back in the office, and well, just thought I'd show you what I use all that data for. So effectively I take all of these data points and then strip them down into these little key points. I've got my paddocks, my elevation, the coldest recorded temp, the amount of frost events, how many frost hours total there was, and the amount of heat days along with the last frost. So for all of those things I've got little Excel formulas that I can run through and pull out all that data. Aside from the last frost day, I haven't worked out how to do that one. I've got to manually go through that one and pull it out myself. But there is some great information here. Like you'll notice between this one here, which is on one of the higher points on the farm, and these two, which are deliberately put in the lowest spots I could find, their cold air will run. That one's literally in the bottom of a gully, and that one's in the fence at the lowest point in that paddock. You'll see the difference in frost date. So there's over a month actually between the last frost at this logger and this one here. And the other interesting thing, if you go back through the data, in early September, there were frost events, or not frost events, there were cold weather events that got down to about 2 degrees. So why is it important to know this, and what am I going to do with it? What you want to do is you want to work out when your last frost was and when your first heat stress day was, and between those two events is where you want to aim to be flowering. So you can determine what variety you want to grow and when you should be sowing to try and get them flowering in that window. Now, if you don't have all these data loggers scattered around the place, and most people don't, there is one other thing you can do, and that's go to a handy little app called Climate. So this is Climate. It's a free service. You can download the app on your phone, whether you're with Android or Apple, or if you don't have either of them, you can log into it on the internet through the browser. You do have to sign up for it, but it is free, and I found it to be a great little tool, particularly if you don't have a whole heap of data loggers scattered around the countryside. There's a whole heap of different functions up the side. How's your season tracking? How much nitrate are you likely to have in your ground? Yield potential, chance of drought. But this is my favourite, how hot or cold, and that's what I use for timing my ideal flowering time. Obviously, you want to be sowing up here, so you're going to try and track for your optimum window down here to be flowering. You whack in, you want heat and cold stress, what your maximum temperature is, and your minimum temperature. I like to give myself a bit of a buffer by having 2 degrees and 28. Risk 1 in 10. And I use the data from 1970s to present, but you can play with all these settings and get a bit of a feel. The other important thing is to make sure you've gotten the weather station that's closest to you or will best reflect your place. Once you whack in all that data and hit go, it throws out a graph like that, and it'll give you your ideal flowering time, which for me looks like it's the 19th or 20th of September. So from that, I need to work out what variety I'm going to run with and when I need to plant in order to try and hit that window, minimise yield loss from heat and minimise my yield loss from frost. It's the best way to sort it out if you don't have data loggers. Now, the trouble with this is, if you are using a generic weather station, how do I not know that's up on top of a hill or if it's down in a gully? Take Coonabarabran for an example. Their local weather station is at the airport. If you've ever flown into Coona, you'll know that's right on top of a hill. So it's not going to have a lot of frosts. It's always telling me the weather's balmy. As soon as I drive into the town, my windows are fogging up and frosting over. It doesn't give you an accurate reading. So that's why it helps to have your own weather station at home or a couple of data loggers scattered around to give you an idea of what the temperature is actually doing. So I hope this video helped. Gave you a bit of an idea on how you can use data loggers to manage your frost risk and heat risk. And hopefully there's something in it that you can take out of it, even if it's just using this Climate app. Anyway, let me know what you think of the video. Share it with a mate, like it, subscribe, pass it round, and hit me up some suggestions for some more videos that you'd like to see. I'm pretty keen to do a little bit more of this. In the next month, I'll actually be leaving here and I'll be moving up closer to my farm. So I'll be able to do more stuff in the paddock, provide you with more content. I'll be around there more often and can really get into some of the nitty gritty of what's going on. Anyway, until next time, keep at it.